Good afternoon. It is my privilege and pleasure to be invited to speak to you and address you today, even though virtually it may be, at the SSP graduation 2022. Firstly, a congratulations to all of the scholars who've gone through the funnest, but also sometimes most grueling years, which is your teenagehood in high school, and carrying the baton of the SSP organization over all of these years. And congratulations for all of your proud achievements and being here today as you embark on a new journey to face an ever-changing world that we are currently living in this post-pandemic era. I would really love to also thank the SSP members, the SSP patrons, the SSP donors who have made a lot of this possible, and also the schools where the SSP students attend, and the members of the faculties of all the different areas where SSP students' lives are affected. My name is Maurice Madiba. I'm an SSP scholar who graduated in 2005. Imagine, it's almost 20 years now. Albeit though I'm not that old, as some may consider. But I've really walked a journey with SSP and seen the impact that the organization has had, particularly in my life and also in the lives of my fellow SSP scholars. As scholars and alumni, it's important for us to continue building a community. Nothing can be taken away from us if we stay together and we are a community together. Presently, I'm the founder and CEO of a business called Cloud Atlas Investing. Some of you, those who are keen with the markets and trade the markets, will know that my business is focused on African exchange traded funds by trading companies listed on various African exchanges. It is not by chance that this business came to be, but it was really a deliberate effort and an engaged effort with many stakeholders, of which SSP is one of those, laying the foundation for my education and my ability then to, after graduation, similar to what you're having today, then springboard into the world and obtain a higher degree, higher education, and then be able to pursue work opportunities. So it's fundamental because the world back then is very different to the world now. So I sometimes wonder if I'm actually qualified to address you scholars, because you're smart, you know technology, and you're exposed to much more technology than we are. When we were growing up in my years at graduation, what was really technology then was playing a game called Snake on a Nokia 3310. Some of you may not even remember that or come to know that. I'm sure now it's referred to as retro. But even with that, we were facing an ever-changing world where technology was starting to take a forefront of where the world was going. What's happened over the last 2 years with the outbreak of the COVID pandemic has really sent a lot of organizations shaking in trying to grasp how to manage these new changes we faced with. The impact has been phenomenal, not necessarily in a great way, but we've seen the economic downturn that's brought about by COVID. Just in South Africa, our petrol price has breached the 20 Rand mark. We can see where the Rand dollar is trading at the present moment, and our economy has not been growing. And like many other economies across the globe, their GDP has not been growing, but they have been taking on a lot more debt to be able to deal with the impact of the COVID devastation that it's caused. There's also been a political shift, and this political shift has seen us really undergo a surveillance state type of living in the past 2 years, where the state has assumed a lot more power in our day-to-day lives, telling us where we can go, where we can't go, what time we must be at home, and even what time we must be in bed. And you know, it's a joke that was on Twitter sometime, someone saying, rest, Buffett, to rest. You know, aklaliwe 6 esuku. So it kind of reminds me of how the state has intervened in our day-to-day living. And this has had vast impacts on what the political structure is potentially going to look like in this new world that you are stepping into. But if I take a moment to reflect on potentially two, and including our markets, but two external markets and how they have responded. Firstly, starting with the United States of America, which has seen its stock market hit all-time highs, despite a rapid and significant drop in prices in March of 2020. But it has risen ever since then and has put a lot more money into the pockets of ordinary Americans who are invested in their stock market and who have pension funds, etc. And we've seen what happened with GameStop and what Robin Hood traders did to all of the large established hedge funds out in New York in Wall Street. But we also noticed some horrors taking place in America, as we saw the former president, Donald Trump, exit office, and just preceded by that was the insurrection on the Capitol, where some will say they were fighting for their democracy, others will saying they were defiling democracy. Left and right wings really at opposing forces. And that shook fundamentally what Americans believed was a proper and adequate political system. And so we are seeing now the effects of that in the dialogue that has taken place since the Biden administration has started. The second country I want to look at is China. And China has done very well in terms of it being a miracle over the last 20 years, even in that short measurable time. When I was in high school, there was what people would call Hong Kong or Xinjiang. Little did I know Xinjiang is a province in China where they make a lot of goods. But that's what we used to refer to Chinese goods as back in 2000. In fact, sometimes you would even buy Chinese goods because of their quality, but when you get to school, people would say, hey, this is Adidas, is it not Adidas? But China has moved from being that part of the world to really being a superpower and an economic miracle. And that has taken on a different type of state, not necessarily a democracy, but it's taken on a communist authoritative state, which has been able to see itself shift into these new echelons of economic power. During COVID, they also handled it as it outbroke there in Wuhan, we all remember, but they went into strict lockdown and perhaps set a precedence for the world which may not have been necessary, but has been followed by the rest of the world for an extended period of time. But they were swift to act and they were extreme in their action. And so then China has managed to come out of the doldrums of the COVID pandemic much stronger, much more unified, and will be hosting the Beijing Olympics. As we speak, they have just entered their new year, which is the year of the tiger. A year in which, when you look at the animal and what it represents, should really drive extreme focus in what we are doing, where we're looking to go, and what we can achieve. Nobody has a crystal ball that can look into the future, but we have our present day potential, our present day connections, and our talents, which we ought to use to achieve greater heights. Come back to South Africa and how we have seen the impact of COVID. The lockdowns were extremely harsh, and they brought out perhaps an uglier side to our system. As we know that a lot of the jobs that are done, unskilled jobs, piecemeal jobs as they call them, piece jobs, are done by a lot of foreigners. And that then did spew over into the hard lockdown where people were not able to get jobs because of the restriction on movement of persons. When you see people's livelihoods being stripped away from them, it is no surprise that after some time there was pent-up anger and frustration, and everyone was looking for some sort of an excuse to really vent that out. And with the arrest of our former president, Jacob Zuma, that then led to the riots and the looting that took place in July of last year. Now, as SSP scholars, we come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities and belief systems. But we are principled individuals and know that an education is our best means of defense against things like poverty, against insurrections, against hard political interventions. And we must use this tool of education to build the society that we want to live in post this pandemic. If we ignore this opportunity, we will be again in 20 years still at the mercy of the rest of the world. As SSP scholars, you know SSP needs you to do your best, and you've been under the watch of SSP for the last 5 years. But now you're going to be under your own watch as you step into work, gap years, varsity, colleges, and training, and a whole host of things that the world offers you. I want you to know that at this present moment, the world is your oyster, irrespective of the situation you may find yourself in, whether you've made a plan or you have not made a plan. I like to say, as I said to my friend, that God is the greatest mathematician, and I said that there's an equation, perhaps, which we can follow, that whether you're an X or Y chromosome, when you add life, XY chromosome plus life equals figure itself out. That is the privilege of being alive and the opportunity we have been given. And my call to you as SSP scholars, as you embark on your journeys, is to remain as a community, for us to stick together, to remain in touch and provide a support system for one another. Because by us doing that, we build and we grow. We're not having a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 15-year plan, a 20-year plan. We are having a plan to be a community. And in being that community, we are able to hold each other up and hold each other to rise to new levels. And by doing so, as we succeed on our journeys collectively and individually, we are then able to plow back to this organization which has done so much for us, especially at the most critical and formative years of our lives, which is the student sponsorship program. So I'm hoping today that you leave with a sense of awe and wonder in what is possible and what you can achieve in this day and age. Because lo and behold, if we should enter into another pandemic, let us be the servant who took their 3 parables or their 5 parables and used them to multiply. Let us not be the one who took 1 parable and said, I'll see it at another time, because our time is now. And as we do that, we should have the next technicians, the next software coders and developers, the next tech billionaires, even mining magnates, the next industrialists coming from this exact community, the next Warren Buffetts coming from this community, in order for us to achieve and make use of this potential which we've been given. This is my address to you, and I would like to thank you for the time. I'm sorry we could not be together in person as other events have been in the past, but soon it will be like that. Let us remember community, family, and country. Thank you. Peace. God bless you. Goodbye.